Well, welcome everybody here to the September the 8th, 2022 meeting of the Frankfort County Planning Commission. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
David Ball.
Present.
Patty Frost.
Here.
Sharon Jackson.
Yes.
Keith Lee.
Here.
Paul Looney.
Here.
Timothy Lesher.
Here.
William May.
Here.
Daryl Sanderson.
Here.
Russell Wright.
Here.
Quorum of 9.
We have a quorum. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the August meeting? So moved. So second? Okay.
I've got a correction.
Okay.
Can we make in this, I guess it's all part of the minutes, a summary of our public hearing. Is that all part of the minutes? So, I don't know what page it's on. Yeah. 1, 2, page 4, the bottom, I think. The revised one you sent out, Vicki, it may be different. It's where it said I asked how we got to this text amendment. I was asking, and this is a bigger issue, but how we got to, the staff had indicated that this commission had interpreted distilled spirits as an agricultural product. And I was asking about that, not how we got to the text amendment. I understand that. And so
I'll make that correct.
it's all kind of misconstrued there, because I think the answer was the commission had voted on it at the July meeting. And that's a subject I'll bring up later, but that was the gist of the question, if that makes sense.
I can make that change.
Okay.
Chair, I'll make the motion we approve the minutes, the amended minutes.
Second.
Okay. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, hearing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. Motion passed. Need a motion to approve the payment of the bills.
I move we pay the bills.
Second.
Do I have a second? Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those disapproves, say like sign. Okay. Now, does the staff have any items they want to bring it up? About the comp plan, maybe?
Good evening, Commissioner Cockley, Director of City Planning and Community Development. Not a lot to update in terms of immediately upcoming meetings. Our project schedule has that next advisory committee on the second to last week of September. I don't have that date on me immediately. And that'll be the next set of meetings. The advisory committee will meet, and we'll get with some stakeholders to begin discussing what the future land use map might look like. So we've been working with the consultant on putting together some information to share with that group and that sort of thing. But other than that, the only update would be that I believe since this group met, had our an advisory committee meeting to begin talking about the goals and objectives and vision statement. And so we shared some drafts with the folks that were there, got some input at the meeting, and have had them preparing some homework on goals and policies analysis from our old goals and policies to working towards beginning new ones. And so we're still waiting on getting that back to compile it for the consultant to go through people's homework and all that, and then share that back with the group, and obviously get up on the website for the public and all that. So, but just continue to monitor distilled-together.com.
How are we on our time frame for getting this done that we proposed?
I think we're still close on track. We've now entered phase 2, and we're, if memory serves me correctly, 4 to going on 5 months. So I think in the original scope of services, phase 1 was supposed to be like a 3-month window, and so we're a month or so into phase 2. So based on the scope, we're still on track.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, I don't think we have any special committee reports, and there's no old business. So that leads us to the first item. And I want to also, I talked to Ms., you'll make the introduction. We're going to divide this vote into 2 votes, county and city. Even though we had one discussion, a public hearing last month, we feel we're going to have a separate vote, both the county and the city. And I think Ms. Sewell's going to lead off with the city, county, correct?
Yes. No, it's what this,
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I have a motion.
yes, sir.
I move that we table items 1 and 2, send these items to the zoning update committee pending a comprehensive plan update.
I'll second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on the motion?
Yeah, I'll have some discussion.
Okay.
I'm really troubled by how we have gotten here and the process by which we have gone through. Let me be really clear. This is not and I myself personally, and I don't believe anyone on this board has any animus towards Buffalo Trace or any other distiller, so this is not in relation to that, it's in relation to how we have got to where we are tonight. And the fact that we went through a public hearing last month, under the, we started the public hearing with a statement from staff that in July, this commission or this board had reinterpreted a distilled spirit as an agricultural product, and in fact had made it a permitted use in agricultural land. We have subsequent clarification from our board attorney that in fact we did not do that. So the entire hearing went through with that misunderstanding that we had misinterpreted that. We're also in the midst of a comprehensive plan update. This is an issue that is really big and far-reaching and has a lot of consequences. We've received dozens and dozens of correspondence on both sides of this issue, supporting and against it, and haven't had a chance to fully vet that out. So we've gone through a public hearing where we got some of the issues on the table. There's still a lot to be gone through, and we've closed the public hearing and don't have any more opportunity to bring any testimony back. So I'm really bothered by the fact of where we are and how we've let ourselves get here, and would like to give ourselves an opportunity for everybody's benefit. We had a presentation from Mr. Jones that we include RR in this and not just AG. That's a big deal, and I'm not sure how we would ever get there tonight, but he made a good point that there's so little AG that it might not be relevant necessarily. So I think there's a lot of issues to be vetted out that we just haven't gotten there yet. And that typically would happen in zoning update and the comprehensive plan, which, and I believe some of this goes against the comprehensive plan in general. But we're at the position now where we're working to figure out what the vision for our community is for 20 and 40 years into the future. So I'd like to give ourselves an opportunity for everybody's benefit to fully vet those things out. So that's why I've made the motion that we not take immediate action on this and we pause and try to vet it out more fully.
Who here on the commission felt like they were misrepresented last time? You mentioned that there was some misrepresentation or confusion.
I asked the question directly at the beginning of the hearing, is that what we did? The staff said yes, and there was no clarification. So I'd ask other members that had the same.
But the commission voted, I'm pretty sure, 9-0 to go ahead and
This isn't in relation to the text amendment.
Okay.
This is in relation to the statement that the commission, in conjunction with that motion, had also made it included with that to reinterpret distilled spirits as an agricultural product, which in fact we did not do according to council, but the statement was made by staff that we did do that at our July hearing, our July meeting. So Mr. Jackson isn't here, but he had concurred with me that that's what he heard too. So I think there was and I asked for clarification. We couldn't get it. Mr. Logan wasn't able to go back and listen to the meeting while we were there, so he couldn't give that at our last meeting. He couldn't clarify that point. That's what I was clarifying in the minutes. That's what I specifically asked. Did we do that? Staff said we did do that. That's what they heard. But we didn't do that. That's not what we did. So, I didn't ask questions that I had at the time because I was like, well, it's irrelevant at this point. If we've already somehow made a decision, which baffled the mind, but I think a lot of the public heard the same thing.
Mr. Logan, would
Yes.
you have anything to say about that? Could you?
I'm not, this is a discussion on staff with the commission, not with me.
Okay, thank you.
There's not a legal issue involved there.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Any discussion? Any discussions? Would you please read do you have a motion as it was presented by?
The motion was to table the 2 public hearings, send it back to the zoning update committee, and
Pending the comprehensive plan update.
pending the comp plan update.
We do need a roll call vote on that.
Okay.
It'll be in favor of that motion, yes, or no, we'll be opposed to it.
Right. Okay. Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross? Yes. Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr.
And
Lee?
let me explain my vote. At the very outset of this conversation, I asked that we send this issue to the comprehensive plan consultants for review and comment. The individuals with whom I was working indicated that they didn't want that we should move forward. So I don't have a problem with input from the comp plan process. My answer would be yes.
Mr. Lee?
No.
Mr. Looney?
Yes.
Mr. Lusher?
No.
Mr. May?
I'm going to vote yes, and I'll tell you why. Because I've always found when making government decisions or any type of decision, like if there's any type of confusion, I've always given advice like you stop until all of that is clarified. And this would not preclude us coming back at our next meeting and doing something different. I think in light of that information that was brought forward, where there is some confusion, and I don't know what the answer was, then that's my vote for tonight.
Mr. Sanderson?
I got a question for the staff.
I don't think you can ask questions during the roll call, I'm sorry.
I've heard a discussion.
I want to clarify something. Do I have the right to, Mr. Logan, do I have the right to ask a question to clarify something?
There's, a question has been called, we're supposed to be voting. So I'm going to say, I don't think you can now. I think you could have during discussion.
I didn't know he was going to go this far. So clarify to me, yes means we move forward, no means we send it to comprehensive plan,
Other way. No.
or
Yeah.
vice versa?
Other way around. Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
so yes, we send it to comprehensive plan.
Mr. Swager's not here. Chairman Wright?
No.
Motion passes 6-3.
Take a vote. The meeting just got started.
Or one of these, you had your general public. I mean, one other thing to discuss was the comprehensive plan.
He came up with my favorite motion.
It just is, general public
Paul, I didn't bring it up while you were testifying. It was at the zoning update committee. It was a circus. And they had a full oversight.
didn't have a draft amendment.
We had, it makes no difference. The draft amendment of the previous
Should wait for the comprehensive plan. This is a
Didn't
big
wait years. Here's the reality is what we did tonight, Buffalo Trace can start building tomorrow. We already have the interpretations clear.
No, we don't. You did, Logan just sent it to you. He said we did not do that.
That's not what I'm talking about. We have the interpretation from the Department of Agriculture.
That's irrelevant. Ed said that, no, Ed said that's irrelevant.
I asked Rob directly, can they start building tomorrow? He
No,
goes,
they
"Yes."
cannot.
Who's going to prosecute?
What the,
Who's going to work them?
that is not relevant.
It reads exactly as a warehouse
Staff
control
cannot
plan.
use that as an interpretation.
They can issue the
It is, in
permits.
fact, it's asinine, really, but they can't use that as a reason to put it. Nobody
Write that down, Rob.
That's how we got it. Then it gets voted on by city and county.
No, that's how Rob got it. That's how we got it.
Our board is not, zoning law is not this individual thing.
We can make amendments.
So they don't,
change
that's
it.
not
If you're ready.
It's over there.
Defining a product. You have a definition from the regulation of property, the building.
First of all, nobody that likes my idea.
They have
It's a
not come.
manufactured product.
And we got to approve before they go to the fiscal court or the city.
Someone who does that product is not a manufactured product, it's an
I don't
agricultural.
have a problem with more discussion.
100%
It's such a big issue.
I'll agree to disagree.
Still a huge issue.
Yeah.
It's a huge issue anyway. Here was my.
If he had come up with my first recommendation as it relates to this thing, I'd have been voting with you.
I'm not sure.
No, I'd have been voting no.
I hate conditions that would kind of sit like a long way from those houses and four rows of buffalo trees. All these conditions that now it's passed, there is no conditions. They can build it to the minimum standards, right up on top of, no trees, no nothing. You know, you win the battle, but you lose the
Okay. Our next item, Madam Secretary.
Public hearing, Eastwood Partners LLC in care of Brian Hicks are requesting approval of a zone map amendment from Planned Commercial District PC to Highway Commercial District CH for a 5.441 acre portion of property at 260 Versailles Road. The property is more specifically identified as PBA map number 085-00-00-021.00. This is a city item.
Mr. Logan, would you please qualify the staff?
Could you state your name for the record, please?
Eric Cockley.
Mr. Cocker, what's your position with the city of Frankfort?
I'm Director of the Planning and Community Development Department.
And in your capacity, have you reviewed an application tonight with regard to Eastwood Partners LLC?
Yes, sir.
And have you reduced your review to a staff report in writing?
Yes, sir.
You made a recommendation with regard to it.
I have.
Are there any additions or deletions to that recommendation?
I have none.
Would you briefly indicate to the commission your findings with regard to this application?
I had positive findings as it relates to the application and its relationship with the comp plan, so I've recommended approval of the zone change.
I move to submit Mr. Conkley's report into the record.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you never got anybody to sign up for or against or swarm in. Mr.
Testimony.
Logan, should we do this now, or would you?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Sure.
what we do
Speaks or-
that. We forgot to ask for it. If you want to have a chance to speak, a testimony, you need to sign up. We'll swear you in.
You don't need to sign up.
You don't need to sign, okay. All right, we know who you are.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
You guys want to
Please
sign?
stand.
Please stand.
Do you swear, do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give and have given is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mr. Cocker, going back again, do you reaffirm the statements you made prior to this one?
I prepared a report with positive findings as it relates to the request and have made a recommendation of approval.
Thank you, sir. Now, I do move to introduce the staff report into the record in lieu of Mr. testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. Does the commission have any questions of the staff?
I do. Mr. Chairman, one of the conditions, and maybe the owner needs to address this, I would think it'd be very hard to load trucks and do whatever without having any material outside the building. Is that a little, maybe they'll address it, but what was your reasoning for having that? I mean, I don't want it strung out all over everywhere, but it seems like there has to be some place outside the
Right.
building for staging loads and bringing raw materials in and whatnot. I just wanted you to expand on
So
that, please.
the most direct answer is because of the requirements to have the conditional use associated with the zone change for this particular use. When we decided to try to process this in this way, one of the conditions is that everything has to happen within the fully enclosed building. And I think the reason for that is it recognizes this use category is sort of a blend between a retail use and a fabrication, I don't want to call it manufacturing. I don't think that's fair, but that kind of use. And so you're going to do it in areas. The reason it's a conditional use in the CH zone as opposed to, say, just being a permitted use in the IG zone is because they're aware that it's going to be located possibly closer to other commercial centers or residential centers. So the idea is, in order for it to, make a good neighbor at those uses.
No, without question, I certainly wouldn't want to be an eyesore. I'm just trying to think in my head logistically how's that gonna happen, but.
I believe their current
If
operation.
the applicant's fine with it, I'm fine with it. I'm just trying to figure out how you do that in a manufacturing situation.
Yeah, I believe most of their current operation is in an enclosed building, and they can correct me if I'm wrong, but that might be a good question for them if necessary. If that's something that's going to be troublesome to operate that way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you. My question.
Any other questions of staff or the commission?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm
Yes, sir.
trying to
Jackson.
curb my comments at meetings anymore. But Mr. Cockley, I think you touched on a part of my question, and that is if planned commercial allows for these kinds of uses, why the need to go to highway commercial? Is there can we clarify that
Sure. So
somehow?
So the planned commercial districts are fairly wide open, and they reference, if you look at that set of language, different sorts of planned commercial districts that might have varying degrees of commercial and sometimes even light industrial uses.
Yeah.
And had this planned commercial district been one that, to my knowledge, had been set up with that intention, we would have just signed off on it administratively. But since it clearly, to me, was a planned commercial district that was set up as a mixed retail strip center kind of designation, I just wasn't comfortable considering that this was a significantly different use, but one I still believe is appropriate in that area. But I thought it was better to go to the CH where we have a listed use, which is a conditional use, and frankly to allow that to be done here in public, rather than make what would have been quite the interpretation on my part without anybody else knowing about it. And I just wasn't quite comfortable doing that in this case, even though I've recommended approval, but I thought it was just enough of a different animal. And then, as I said, those different uses in the planned commercial district, if I didn't have information from when that area was first zoned and developed that they intended possibly for those uses to be in there, it's just a bit of a stretch for me to administratively sign off on it.
Any other questions of staff?
Maybe if we could just clarify.
Sure.
So they're gonna sell these doors, garage doors, but they're also gonna manufacture them in that building. Is that not what I read?
Yeah, it's again, I don't know that I'd use the word manufacturing. This is not like a heavy manufacturing plant. I think they assemble them, is what I understand, and they may be able to discuss more about their process. But yeah, they essentially will assemble the doors, put them together. They have a showroom for retail, and then some products will be stored there and then picked up by everybody from probably some number of semi-trucks for larger customers. Others might be contractors that come with a little trailer behind a pickup truck and pick up, 2 garage doors for a project, or a homeowner that might purchase one from them. So it's a little bit different animal. It's not strictly a retail use, but they're not really strictly a manufacturer either, because their retail outlet is themselves. You know what I mean? They're not shipping these doors to Lowe's
Right.
and then retailing there.
But there would be the kind of the construction entity of
They would be
screwing
assembling or
everything.
fabricating the doors.
Yes.
We're not
My
like rolling a
understanding.
lot.
But they're not
Big
like-
sheets of metal.
They're not stamping.
Yeah, right.
What kind of noise, I guess I'm getting at noise. What kind of noise would?
So the current
Mr. Chairman,
pardon.
order. I think the applicant ought to be addressing.
Yes, you're correct. That
Sorry.
is correct. We'll get the applicant up here in a few minutes.
So my only comment beyond that, and then we can move, is that their current location is actually in the middle of a dense residential zone, and they operate within that building. My office, since they went in there, that building already has appropriate zoning.
Gotcha.
But I've not received any noise complaints out of that location, just for whatever it's worth.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Questions from staff? Planning Commission. Does the public have any questions of the staff here? I don't see a lot of public outside here. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Cockley.
Yes, sir.
Okay, at this time, I'd like to see the applicant can present their case. And you are, sir.
Good evening, Board. Brian Hicks, McNamara & Jones, on behalf of the applicant.
Mr. Hicks, have you had a chance to review the staff report and approve what is?
I have, and we are in total agreement with staff
Okay,
report.
thank you. Your
Mr.
presentation.
Chairman,
Yes, sir.
since we seem to have had a number of questions from commissioners,
Yes.
it might be easier if Mr. Hicks kind of anticipated and responded to some of those inquiries prior to just being barraged with questions. You might want to kind of expound on
Mr.
it.
Chairman, you answer you have no problem with the conditions as well?
No.
Thank you. That answers my question. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
As to the Steel Blues use of the building, as Eric correctly stated, it is both retail and light industrial, not strictly manufacturing, but more of an assembly process. So I don't believe that the noise level, and my clients are here, that they can speak to it as well, would be something that would be of a nature that would extend beyond the walls of the building.
Mr. Hicks, will they still be doing the same process they're currently doing at the current location?
Yes.
And have you all had any complaints whatsoever of noise or any way complaints about being traffic, loading, unloading, or manufacturing?
None that we've been made aware of.
Thank you.
You're going to be from the. Yep, we'll get around to ask in the public in a second. Okay, the commission is asking questions right now. Okay.
So the whole idea is they're not going to be stamping out the garage doors. They're basically just putting them together to sell.
That's correct.
The
The components are already manufactured, and they're just putting, these are rolling garage doors.
Yeah.
Permission to speak?
Anybody, we're going to take testimony from you in a second.
I believe that's
it.
yeah.
What's that, please?
That's the applicant.
Oh, the applicant. Excuse me. Go ahead, sir. He's representing. Okay. Yes, sir. Come on.
And I would point out that this is infield development, which obviously we're trying to push, so
Yes.
we hope
I
that.
think it's a huge, good deal.
Yeah, no, my name's Rich Sagan. I'm the CEO and president of Steel Blue. Obviously, we've been operating on the 401 side of Franklin Avenue. Our process, to be very candid and open with all of you, the loudest noise we'll make is probably a nail gun as we staple and build our boxes for shipment. Our process is basically folding of metal and assembling that metal and rolling the door up and putting it in a wooden box and loading it on a truck. So our activity level, just from our history, we've been in the industry for almost 20 years. The traffic and the loading and unloading of raw materials and shipments would be very akin to what was once there at the Sears building. We even talked to Eric a little bit about an example. We're really basically assembling a tractor or a lawnmower or having an oil change done in that building from a noise level standpoint. So our noise abatement is pretty minimal. Again, the biggest, obviously the loudest machine we have is a folder, and it's hydraulic. You'd have to be right next to it to hear it. So The sheets we're using are very light gauge metal. It's not heavy gauge metal. The heaviest gauge we use is 20 gauge. So a lot of our metal is 29 gauge ag panel, if you're familiar with the roofing and construction of those. That's the kind of metal we're dealing with in 10-foot lengths at a maximum. So maybe 14, maybe 16, but 80% of our business is going to be 10-foot wide doors that go in a typical 8 by 10 opening. So that's really where we are with that. But with hopes to date, I can attest that we are in a very small space. We've hired 65 employees in that building, and we're blowing at the seams at it right now. So it's good for our business, and obviously why we have our eyes on a much larger space. So.
Can you speak to the traffic level you experience on a daily basis?
Yeah, on a daily basis, incoming we'll probably have 1, maybe 2 trucks coming in. At our peak, we'll probably have maybe 3 to 4 leaving. They'll be all flatbed trucks. Some box trucks, FedEx trucks. Again, nothing outside the realm of what was being delivered there before.
Just curious, sir. Thank you for moving to that building. I certainly appreciate that.
It's a great building, especially when it's a blank canvas. So it's really great for us.
On the application, it says miscellaneous fabricated metal products. Do you do other products except other than the doors?
Yeah, so it'll be associated. So really, the industry we serve is the storage industry.
Okay.
Public storage, Cube Smart, Extra Space. So the doors are a component of that, but when you look at one of those buildings, it's also the hallway components that put up the walls in the building.
All right.
So they're headers, they're roll-up frames that support the aesthetics beside the door.
Okay, thank you.
Again, made through the same process.
Are there any other questions of the applicant from the commission? Okay. At this point in time, we'll take any questions from the public. I think we had one right back in.
What are your hours of operation?
Our hours of operation today are 7 to 3:30 and 3:30 to 11.
So there are 2 shifts.
Smaller second shift, right now we have about 20 people on that second shift, really just in support of parts and pieces for the first shift.
You looking to put a 3rd shift at some point?
If we go to a 3rd shift, it will be in another location out west, I can assure you.
And you say you're only going to be in the building? There won't be anything, none of this fabricating going on outside the building?
No, ma'am.
Because I live behind it.
Yeah, you won't hear a peep from us.
And your noise level, you say is relatively low.
I'm going to make a small joke here, but the noise we have at our current location, it's the outside folks that make more noise than we do.
Okay, what is that current location? That's here in Frankfort?
It's 401 Franklin Avenue, right off of Holmes Street.
Are there any other questions of the applicant from the public? Okay. I think that would be it.
Thank you.
Okay. Now, are there anybody out here in the audience who wishes to speak on the request or give testimony?
Can I add one other point?
You want to come on up?
Just to address some of your second shift questions, there will be no truck traffic on second shift. Right, all of our shipping hours are from basically 7 in the morning till 3 in the afternoon. There may be an occasional to get a quick load out, but that'll happen during daylight hours. It will not happen in the middle of the night. Typically, truckers don't want to pick up in the middle of the night anyway. Thanks.
Okay. If there's no further testimony,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Lee.
we asked, has there been,
There has
Has there
not
been
been,
not been enough to
I do
warrant
not
a
think we
summary?
need to table it. I think there's
We
been
can
such
vote on
limited
tonight.
testimony that we've heard, we haven't heard enough tonight to require this in prepare something.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, do I have a motion to go forward?
If it's appropriate, then, Mr. Chairman, I would offer a motion that we close the public hearing, use the staff report or adopt the staff report as a summary of the public hearing and take action on the item at tonight's meeting.
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion? Any discussion? Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, hearing none. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Looney?
Yes.
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Chairman Wright?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
And Mr. Chairman, before we do findings of fact or anything of that nature, one of the traditions of the Planning Commission has been that following a zone map amendment, we've always asked to see or have a development plan submitted for review by the commission. I don't see a need for that on this, but before we get into the motion phase, I figured we'd ask if there's a desire by the commission to have one submitted. If not, then, Mr. Chairman, you need to open the floor for findings of fact. I'm ahead of myself, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yes, the point, we are open now for findings of fact. Do I hear any?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, finding the fact 1, 2, and 3 on page 4 of the staff report.
What page, sir?
Page 4 of the staff report. 3 there.
I'll second that.
I just have one question. Yes, sir. Mr. Lester asked a question. Are we doing this as one item, both the zone change and the conditional use, or are we doing this as separate items?
I would think the conditional use is after this.
Yes.
Under a different
I
heading.
think you cited the conditional use facts. Yeah, the findings of fact for the zone change are on page 10 of the other packet.
Mr. Lusher?
On page
You are
10.
correct.
On page 10.
Yeah, page 10.
10, yeah.
These. One of those, page 10 of 13. And then the conditional
Mr.
use.
Chairman, scratch what I said earlier, please.
It has been
And,
removed.
I would like to make findings of fact 1 through 4
Okay.
on page 10 of the staff report.
There you go. Now,
And I think we could vote on those all at once, if the chairman so wishes.
You second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Or do we need to vote on these individually, or can we have them as?
No, we can have all.
The motion is
have
1
all
through
four.
4. That's-
Yeah.
that's- it's
The
up-
motion was
it's
1
your
through
pleasure,
4, so
but-
we
Oh,
don't.
one through four, okay, correct, okay,
Yeah.
make sure I heard that right. Okay, we have a motion, have a second? Okay,
We have a second.
okay. Do we have any discussion in regard to that? Discussion? No discussion? Okay. Hearing none and seeing none, Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Looney?
Yes.
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Chairman Wright?
Yes.
Motion's unanimous.
Okay. Madam Secretary, so bring up the next item.
Well, we got,
Is that the conditional use?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to findings of fact cease.
Oh, yes, we do, okay. There's a motion
And
for
I'll
final
second
facts. Is there a second? Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, we can do it on voice vote, okay? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign, please. Okay, motion passes.
Now you want a motion for the
She has to read the map.
No, we got the map amendment
Mr.
to
Governor,
do.
we just
Need a
closed.
motion on the map amendment now.
Conditional use.
We've just done the procedural things to get to the motion on the map amendment.
We now have to-
I thought we had finished the one before we started the other.
all right, that was
You ready,
page 10.
Mr. Chairman?
I am.
Mr. Chairman, I'll offer the motion that the planning commission ask the city commission to grant the request of Eastwood Partners LLC, care of Mr. Brian Hicks at 315 High Street, Frankfort, Kentucky 40601, to grant a zone map amendment for property located at 260 Versailles Road from planned commercial to the suburban business center highway commercial based on the aforementioned 4 findings of fact.
Second.
Did I miss something?
Yeah, it's
Location.
the location of it's only the 5.44 acres, it's not the whole plot.
Oh, good point.
Okay,
Because that's, if you do the whole plot, you're doing the whole subdivision, the whole development. We're only doing the
shopping
back.
the whole shopping center?
Yeah, so we're only doing the
Then
back.
5.44 acres.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Is there discussion on the motion? Is there discussion?
Just to
on-
clarify, it's not for the entire shopping center, it's.
Yeah.
it's
Just the Sears
It's
lot.
the Sears,
Part.
the back part of it.
5.4 acre, that's much larger than that, so, okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay,
Now, on my own motion,
yes.
clarity. Mr. Legal Counsel,
Yes.
now, since we have amongst ourselves indicated that we do not wish to see the development plan, do we need to specifically state that we don't want to see the development
You
plan?
would need to specifically state you do want to see the plan if you want to, otherwise it would not come before you.
I'm ready.
Okay.
You're looking at it, it's just-
And we have a second, the discussion's been closed. Do we have a, is that roll call, should we have a voice vote? I thought voice
You did
vote.
voice vote.
Voice vote, okay. Next secretary. Proceed, yeah.
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Looney? Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Chairman Wright?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay.
Under new business, there's a request in accordance with Articles 4, 18, and 19 of the City of Frankfort zoning ordinance. Eastwood Partners LLC in care of Brian Hicks are requesting a conditional use permit in order to allow a metal fabricating business to operate on the property located at 260 Versailles Road. The property is more particularly described as PVA map number 085-00-00-021.00. If you're going to testify, you need to be sworn. Do you swear in affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Mr. Lovey, you have to requalify the staff again, I mean, Mr. Cox.
I'd love you to do that just to make certain. Mr. Copley, state your name and position for the record, please.
Eric Cockley, Director, City of Frankfort Planning and Community Development.
And could you briefly indicate how long you've been in that position?
4 years,
How long you've been in the area of planning?
approximately 15.
Based upon your training, education, and experience, did you review this request for the Articles 4, 18, and 19 of the city ordinance to allow a metal fabrication business? Did you review that application?
I did.
And did you make any recommendations with regard to it?
I did. I made positive findings and recommended approval based upon 3 suggested conditions.
Thank you, sir. Are there any additions or deletions to your recommendation?
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the staff report be filed into the record in lieu of additional testimony.
It's a question.
Won't go into a lengthy explanation for what the use is, since I believe that's already been discussed this evening. But for the benefit of the folks in here, since I know the Planning Commission does not typically handle conditional uses, and for the folks that are watching and for any of you all, just to briefly explain the difference between a conditional use and a zone change. When we have uses in the permitted use table that are permitted in certain zones, that means they can happen by right, no conditions upon them, no questions asked. When you have conditional uses, which is what this request is, it's essentially where the zoning ordinance has said, okay, this use may be appropriate in some properties within this zone, but not necessarily all. And so that has to be heard as a conditional use request. And then the commission in this case, or usually the Board of Zoning Adjustments, has an opportunity, if they feel necessary, to place conditions upon that use. And so I've suggested a few conditions in the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions you'll have.
Does the commission have any questions of staff?
Yeah, and this is just a clarifying question. I was going to ask it before, but it got to question before I could ask the question. So previously we said it was a portion of parcel, previous PVA number, and this describes it. Does PVA map number 850021 the whole tract, not just the 5.4?
That parcel is the whole tract. The zone change, and then where the activity takes place would be that smaller portion of that tract. Which
do we need? That wasn't, I guess, specific in here is why I was asking Eric. Is that we need to say that portion of the 5.4 acres? Or is that explicit?
I believe that was referenced in the motion. That is the 5.4 acres, and then contained within the staff report was an attachment,
Okay.
which was essentially a legal description and not a subdivision plat, because it didn't subdivide the property, but a graphic survey of the property in question. So I
Okay.
think the record would be fairly clear.
Okay.
I believe, yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any further questions of staff by the commission? Okay. Is there anyone out in the public who has any questions of the staff? I don't think there are. So, okay, at this point in time, will the applicant please present their case?
Thank you, Chairman, Commissioners. Brian Hicks, McNamara and Jones are here on behalf of the applicant.
And you did have a chance to read staff report and approve of it?
I do, and we are in total agreement with the staff report and all conditions.
Okay. Do we have any questions of Mr. Hicks? Anything Mr. Hicks wants to tell us?
I believe, Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, we submitted a preliminary development or a preliminary site plan that showed the 441 acres. I'm searching through the staff report to find it, but was that in there? Do you remember?
Yes, there was an attachment that
Okay.
was submitted that
Yeah.
showed that it wasn't a development plan per se, it was essentially a survey that they had prepared that showed the area, and I believe there was a legal description in the materials as well. But the survey happens to show the existing building, but as far as I understand, there's no plans to physically change the site, and we haven't reviewed a development plan. I don't expect to get one.
That's the proposed concept plan that's in the zone change. That's what you're referring to? Yeah.
That's it.
Okay.
Does the commission have any questions of the applicant? Do we have any questions of the applicant? Okay. All right, does the public have any questions of the applicant? I don't see, I see the public right out there. I don't see them jumping to come up and holler. So, I think at this point in time, we can thank Mr. Hicks for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, are there any persons in the audience who wish to speak on the request? That's basically giving testimony. I don't. Okay.
Sorry, I missed the question.
If, is there anybody who wishes to speak? Other than the applicant, if you want to offer testimony is, okay. None, okay. Is there a motion to approve or deny the conditional use permit? Do I have that?
You looking for a motion?
Yeah, just, yeah, motion.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Mr.
Oh, excuse me.
Chairman, I move that we approve the conditional use permit for Eastwood Partners at 260 Versailles Road, identified by the concept plan and PVA map number 85, 02100, with the 3 conditions listed on page 4 of the report.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, seeing none. Madam Secretary, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Boggs?
Yes.
Ms. Cross?
Yes.
Mr. Jackson?
Yes.
Mr. Lee?
Yes.
Mr. Looney?
Yes.
Mr. Lusher?
Yes.
Mr. May?
Yes.
Mr. Sanderson?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman Wright?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Going back to Mr. Looney's motion, is it my understanding that the motion was to table the items that we had tonight until after the comprehensive plan study has been completed?
Well, I need to get a reference. It says.
Because if that's
Would
the
you-
case,
would
we're
you-
tabling it for.
Would you read the motion, would you read that motion?
14 months.
Yeah, I know. That's what we
I mean,
usually.
I just want to make sure that that's what we're doing, so there's no
I sent it to zoning
misunderstanding.
update committee pending the
That's why I
comprehensive plan
had a
update.
question about,
I said pending the comprehensive plan update in my motion.
Well, I was going to say, that means until it's completed, we don't take it off the table.
which could be 2 years.
I don't know that it needs to be that long.
Well, but it's
Now,
not.
and I'm just getting a clarification on the motion, because Mr. Looney had problems with what we did earlier. I'm having problems with what we did tonight. I mean, is it gonna be, when somebody asks, were you gonna say, no, it's not until the update is done, or what? I think that's what the motion was. Is it right, Ms. Sewell?
That is what the motion
Okay,
was.
thank you. That's all I need to
Well,
know.
is at this point in time, Mr. Looney, we're still here in session. I mean, should this be brought up now at this point?
No,
I mean,
people's left.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's not a public, okay, well.
I mean, technically, there could still be a reconsideration within 24 hours, but I just asked for clarifications. I thought I don't want to have this discussion 2 or 3 more times.
I mean, it was not my intent to wait 2 years. It is, we are in the midst of a process that I think should help inform this.
We might likely.
But not necessarily wait till the full completion of that.
But you didn't clarify it that way, which
Well,
means,
yeah, I know. So but technically, to Mr. Logan's
Technically,
question, I
technically
said
you said
pending the
until the-
comprehensive plan update.
Until the
So,
update, and we haven't got the
if we-
update, so.
You know, hindsight's 20/20. I guess what I would have rather seen is if there's a legal way to get interpretation of is urban warehousing agriculture or not. Until we get that, we can table it, but that might take 2 years as well, who knows? So that's-
Well, I have a question for Mr.
There's
Logan.
more
to
than
that
that.
Well, I mean, the commission could always, if by majority vote, move to take something from it.
Right.
Well, that's what Commissioner May mentioned that you know, it's
But that would-
there.
I mean, that would have to be a specific motion to do that at a specific time.
But we're not adjourned, but we couldn't make that motion.
I would not recommend.
I
that
wouldn't either.
at
That's
this
public
point in
hearing.
time. I mean,
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, isn't it supposed to head to zoning update at this point
It should
anyway?
never have the zoning update anymore. I mean, it's had a
No.
hearing, Patty. Zoning update cannot vote on this by statute. It has to be the commission. So-
Well, the zoning update doesn't, I mean, they just hear and discuss and pass things to us
Yeah,
for
but
vote.
you've closed the public hearing, and they can't hear other testimony. So, you know,
Well, I guess we'll have to vet through that by showing.
we've already decided.
Yeah.
They're hitting vetting, your motion tabled it, so we don't have that issue.
Well, and sent it to zoning update. That's what my motion did. I
You're
said,
talking
send
about
it
2
No,
years
you
down the
said, you
road.
said when the complaint.
Yeah,
was,
it
I
can't,
don't think you could do that.
it can't go to the zoning update committee after yeah, that's not, yeah. you wouldn't have the comp plan even involved if you're gonna have the zoning update committee before. That would be, I don't know.
The intent of my motion was to send it directly to the zoning update committee, but to have it,
Well, that's not what your motion said, that's why I want to clear. Your motion was to table it until after the zoning after
The comprehensive plan.
comprehensive plan, and then to go to the zoning update.
that's not the motion that I put forth. I first said, table it, send it to the zoning update committee, pending the comprehensive plan update. So I now legally, that may be parsing words there, but I didn't, my intent was not to wait to go to zoning update until the comprehensive plan, it was to immediately send it.
To table it and send it back to zoning update?
What, yes, I mean, technically the draft amendment had never gone there. There had been a meeting on this, as I understand, some time ago, but the amendment as we have drafted had never been before the committee. So the intent was to go there, have a full vetting of that. And then as the comprehensive plan is going forward right now, it'd be a part of that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question for council when Paul's done. But my question would be, one of the big questions on that is the warehousing of bourbon and agricultural product. We have testimony from Attorney General that says this, that. Is that, who, could we ask anybody for legal interpretation? Well, who would you ask? Would you ask the district attorney, or district judge? Who would you actually ask for that, in your legal opinion?
My legal opinion is, if the city is going to make that interpretation, the city attorney should make that decision. If the county's going to make that interpretation, the county attorney's going to make it, and your attorney needs to just represent you and not be telling them what these issues are going to be. I mean, I don't think I've got the authority to make that determination and give to them.
Well, that was my
I think
question.
this body might want to make that.
Heretofore,
motion at some point in time to
the
get that
staff has
correct.
interpreted that it is not an agricultural product, and we have had zone changes because of that. So that was going to be kind of my question to Mr. Lee's point is, I mean, do we need to make proactive action in that regard? I mean, can we determine that? Can we propose to determine that?
Yeah.
So, I mean, Mr.
hearing-
Cockley had testified previously, he did not believe it to be interpreted that way. Mr. Hewitt's gone now, so I'm not sure where he lands.
Well,
Huh?
He interpreted the opposite.
So, I mean, there's confusion, which I think is problematic. I mean, but I thought it was zoning
What
and,
is the confusion is whether or not it exists, in my opinion, an interpretation of the city's ordinance and what is an alcohol warehouse, and whether it goes in agricultural, is the city to look at, it's not the planning commission. Secondly, for the county, it's the fiscal court to look at, not the planning commission. We're not talking about a text amendment, we're talking about an interpretation of existing ordinances.
And Mr. Lee, my reason for asking that is when this does come back before us, I think that question still needs, in a lot of commissioners' minds, still might need to be answered.
yeah, and I, you know, and with respect to Mr. Lesher, there are good reasons for us to take this up because there is unclarity with, is that a word? There's lack of clarity. Lack of clarity with this issue.
Well, how about
and
lack of clarity?
I'm not convinced that maybe it doesn't need its whole separate zoning. I mean, jumping to IG for this seems like we've leapt for something that maybe we shouldn't have leapt, you know, but that's the only option we have today.
But when Mr. Lusher brought up the letter from the Secretary of Agriculture, wasn't he essentially saying, this is what I believe we have as?
You can ask Mr. Lusher, but I thought it was, I got
that-
this
the interpretation that Rob-
that's why I'm going for.
And he was saying, prove me wrong otherwise.
But can staff use that? Is that legitimate for them to just take something that somebody wrote and make that, or is
Staff
that?
could make an interpretation, but we have to adopt it. I mean, staff can say, it's my interpretation to do so-and-so. The commission can say, that's not our interpretation.
Well, but what do you mean if
And that was
if Robert decides it is, then it jumps to a permitted use in AG and he doesn't come to us for anything, right?
No, no, no.
amendment.
I mean, yeah,
That was the entire
that's
point of the
fine.
amendment.
So
Was to make
isn't
it
that
consistent.
accurate?
That could very well be accurate, yes.
So.
But if you're talking about whether we tell Robert this is our interpretation or not, you know, that has not happened. That has not, a vote has not taken place by this commission
Mr. Chairman, I
decide
make
what
a
is or is
motion,
not
I
agricultural.
make a motion that the Franklin County Planning Commission, not interpret distilled spirits as an agricultural product for purposes of zoning in Frankfort and Franklin counties.
Second.
Can we, I don't think we can do
Yeah.
that. Ed, can we do that with,
No.
is this, can we do that here now?
This is the problem the first time.
Well,
The
that
first
seems,
motion, now wait a minute, this is a motion for interpretation that hadn't been advertised.
neither was the
fir-
motion.
No,
that
the
you want.
first motion wasn't that. The first motion was to have a hearing and to bring it before us. There's difference. We're not having the public hearing on this. We had the public there then, and we had a public hearing afterwards.
Fair point.
Okay, and you're saying let's just do it
Well,
tonight.
I'm concerned
I think
that
you're making a mistake.
we're in
I
a
do too.
limbo land we're in a limbo
No.
land here.
I think we're making a huge mistake. It looks like we're trying to slide it under the table at the
Yeah, I
very
don't
last
wanna do
second, so we shouldn't vote on anything.
Well, because we,
That is,
I wanna,
You
We have a
made
motion and a second.
Ms. Crum
I wanna
seconded.
remove my motion. Can I
You
do that?
moved to withdraw your motion.
I moved to withdraw
You
my
moved to
motion.
withdraw your second.
I do.
All right, now we're back to square one. Okay, I'll be quiet.
That is excellent point. And that's not, we shouldn't do that. I'm not trying to do that. The concern is that we have something floating out there and if left it, it's just left alone
well, that's
here.
why they were so happy
But-
when they
That's
left.
true.
but we're into this on supposedly
Well, somebody would be
misinterpretation.
happy.
Heretofore,
Now, Mr. Luna, you based a lot of your argument on that good many of us were misinterpreting this or that, and when in reality, you made a motion, apparently you totally you were totally tricked or confused on your own.
well, no, I'm not confused. I think there's still a.
Well, okay, that's not a good word. I
I
take that
think
back.
the challenge is we shouldn't do something with nobody here.
I understand.
And so-
And my point was, even if we wait till the comprehensive plan's done, nothing comprehensive plan's gonna say is warehousing an ag product or not.
So I mean,
We'll still have that in front of us.
I mean,
It's not apt to change.
We can put it on the next, I mean, is the process, do we need to have a hearing on an interpretation, or do we just need to publicize it at our next meeting as a discussion?
And feel free to correct me. Staff testified at the last month's meeting that what I heard and what I asked during that motion to be made about that interpretation is exactly what I heard. Your attorney has gone back and watched, and he agreed that, yeah, I asked that question multiple times, but that was not in the language of the motion made by Mr. Busher and then voted on. Thus, that interpretation didn't happen. So the worry that we're in a la-la land and Robert and I are going to suddenly approve something in an ag zone, council has already told me nothing to that effect has officially happened, thus I'm not going to do that. Is that?
It would be good
I mean,
if Mr. Hewitt was here to confirm.
probably Mr. Luster's here, he can correct us. He said, I'm doing this because, and he only made the motion for the city starting out, to say they can put them in here the way it is under what he believed, and he gave the basis for it.
So regardless.
That's a
of-
legitimate motion, but the
Regardless-
motion was to do a text amendment. The motion wasn't to give an interpretation.
Well, and that's what, I appreciate your clarification on that, Mr. Logan, because that's what I heard through the whole thing. It was just, there was a back and forth, and again, it was unclear, I think, to Mr. Cockley and Mr. Hewitt, what was done in July. This has now been clarified, but that still doesn't leave the
Well,
fact.
That was
We're
clear.
about ready to adjourn. I think, in my opinion, we ought to think, we got a month to think about.
I don't think we should,
I don't think we need to do it the last thing before we adjourn. I think we need to think about it.
I don't think we can because we haven't advertised it.
Yeah, we're not gonna, I think you're right. I don't wanna wait 2 years. I'm not trying to do that, or a year. I mean, I just think that this is
Well,
a
it
big
might have
issue.
to be like that though, unless we could.
No,
Well,
why can't we ask the staff to get the county and city attorney's opinions, publicize them, and then at the next meeting, have a vote to where distilled spirits are or are not an agricultural.
I don't think we should do any kind of a motion. I think staff should be deciding whether they want to get an interpretation from each of the entities or not. I don't think we ought to be predetermining anything with regard to that.
In my opinion, the whole discussion about this agricultural product or not, to a great degree, since no text amendment has happened, since we know no interpretation that is legally binding has happened, is all about a whole lot of nothing. You either will do a text amendment at some point by some method,
Well, that's what I
Rules
just
they adhere
meant,
to.
that's what I was getting at.
Or you won't. Right now, you haven't. And we have a motion from earlier tonight, which if you all choose to change next month, that said we will send this to the zoning update committee pending the comp plan, which tells me I sit on it until comp plan's done. So that's my plan leaving tonight. That's what I heard. That's what Ed heard. If somebody wants to make a motion to change that next month to something else, that can happen. But I don't think we're in.
Could
Law.
could it be taken off the table and voted as it was brought forth to begin with? I mean, as it was.
There can be a motion to take something off the table. Now, what you do with it after that, that's, you won't get to decide that. But yes, I mean, it's been tabled. And
Right.
if there's some confusion about it, there may be a motion to take it off the table and reconsider it. You might table it again. I don't know.
We could, right, we could.
But aren't we back to the same thing as we have to determine?
In my opinion, we made a motion to do a text amendment. It was voted on 9-0. We are now crawfishing to say we didn't really understand that and we're taking it back. That may be the case, but still, we have to make a decision if we're going to keep it as a text amendment. Even if the county does it and the city does it, or either or, it comes to us for a hearing on up or down, yes or no.
Well, that's what I mean. Cannot we publicize that and do that at the next meeting?
I think at the next meeting, you could publicize it and do it at the following meeting, but
Okay.
you haven't advertised it for the next meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
I think when we voted 9-0, we were basically voting for staff to work out a zone amendment, not.
No, it wasn't a zone amendment, never was a zone.
No.
Well, I mean,
Text
text amendment.
Okay.
I don't know that I was saying, oh, sure, I'm all for this whole idea.
I am never going to be presumptuous enough to tell what I thought you were thinking. I know better.
You were so-
Yeah, but that 9-0 was bringing forth, okay, that was, everybody was on board with that. All right.
Right, but it wasn't necessarily saying, yes, I think there should be a zone amendment. No. I mean,
It was to have one presented and you could have voted it up or down. That's been my whole point.
It's a
Right.
result of
Right.
the lawyer who said we can no longer, a text amendment can't be introduced by the property owner.
Right.
So that was,
So we
that
were
was getting it
basically
to us.
saying, okay, go ahead and look into
And then we
this.
told the city and the county to work it up for us.
It wasn't an automatic that I'm still voting for it.
Oh, no, well, it was
No,
automatic
no,
you were
no,
gonna,
no.
it was automatic you were gonna vote, but it was either gonna be yes or no.
Now, my other question is, and I know you love this, there's been some comments that now that we've done what we did tonight, anybody who wants to go build a warehouse in, an ag zone can do so. Is that yes or no?
Anybody can go build anything, but it may be illegal.
I
I'm
mean,
not,
legal.
yeah.
Legally.
I'm just saying that determination of whether or not, if somebody wants to go ahead and start building without getting a permit, whoever it is, Joe Blow
Right.
Distilleries,
I'm trying
and
to.
says under my interpretation, I can do this, then the ultimate decision is gonna be in Franklin Circuit Court.
Because
I mean, can we stop them?
I'm trying to leave it where it's not a specific distillery and not a specific chunk of landscape. But just in general, that's why.
I mean, I'm not gonna give that opinion that somebody can go base it on staff's interpretation. They've got their own attorneys, they can all decide what they wanna do.
I just want to make sure.
Patty, based on Rob's interpretation last time, which he did state if you watched the video, is his interpretation, yes. There'll be nothing he could do to stop other than electric permits and plumbing permits. And that's in the video from last time. So, once again, tonight was to be able to discuss this. The motion was made so quickly that took the opportunity for us to discuss this and have these conversations. Now it's tabled. So we jumped the gun.
It could be taken off the table, we think, and reintroduced as it was beginning this meeting, maybe.
You've got someone that's made a motion, you've all voted on it. I think he made one that wasn't to take it next month. I mean, if we're gonna do it, the commission's gonna have to, by majority vote, to remove it from the table to take whatever action. And I think that needs to be advertised so the public
Right,
can
right.
get back in here.
Ed,
and we could, yes, sir.
question on that. Paul's original motion was not advertised. It was just
Well,
brought
yeah,
up.
the original motion to table it was not advertised, but that's a procedural motion. But if we're gonna remove it from the table for a specific reason, I think we should advertise it. Because people left here tonight, pretty convinced that we're not gonna have to deal with this for a while. I don't think we did a very good job of making it clear to them that it's gonna come back again sometime.
What's the schedule?
That's just my opinion.
For zoning update, what's the schedule when it can go to zoning? update?
Well, but it's, that started the whole, the problem is that the motion sounds like that they're not gonna go to the zoning update until we get a comprehensive plan.
Now, that's my question, that's why I thought it
Well,
said.
that wasn't the intent of the motion to wait on that.
That's wait and see. That's the problem.
And it could
I'm
go to
looking at
zoning
our secretary,
update
took it
anyway.
down and
No,
she
it's-
heard
it
it
said
the
he
same
couldn't.
way
Yeah,
I did.
We'll have you guys back. We're not adjourned yet, sir.
I've been on this thing for a long time. and
Just
if it's done-
interpreted it as that, though. You can't, so you can't go back.
If it can go back if it's not the same.
Well,
What
you
would not be
know,
the same?
and maybe this is where it's time to leave for me. But the zoning update committee is a tool created by the planning commission to engage in conversations, not to begin or stop an action. The zoning update committee is simply a tool through which the planning commission in its alter ego gets additional information regarding an issue. The same discussion that you hear at a zoning update committee, then at a public hearing stage, gets to come to the full commission. And so you really haven't saved anything by going to the zoning update committee and not to the full commission for a conversation on an issue that is as important as the issue that we're discussing. If and when this issue is taken from the table for whatever reason, the full planning commission should be permitted to hear the entirety of the discussion on the issue so that you're not hearing time and again the same stuff being discussed, so that you're receiving information in a primary setting, and then you can make an informed decision. Whether 50 people stand in the back of the room and say, my farm is the most pristine thing that God has ever allowed to be created, the butterflies are most unusual, or whatever the case may be, doesn't change the basic information that will have to be used by this commission to make a determination final. You got to make a determination as to whether or not a developer or an owner has the right to, as in the name of an owner, to sell property to someone who can do something else at a profit, if that's what they want to do, or if a developer can purchase it with the idea of being able to utilize that property for whatever the purposes are that they want to utilize it. And we're supposed to do that without a personal or an emotional attachment thereto. So both sides of the argument is heard, both sides of the argument are weighed, and both sides of the argument get considered in the final decision. And if people don't believe that we are capable of doing that, then the next point of the version for them is, kick the rascals out. It's time for a new group to be there to hear and discuss and make determinations. So we need to think kind of introspectively about this thing before we decide what we're actually going to do.
Well, I mean, yeah, as I mentioned, I think this is a very important issue, and it deserves full, I mean, there's no hiding any of this. It should be fully, some of the challenges, and it's the technical aspects. I had asked staff tonight to be able to share stuff on the screen with the computer as we look at the zoning map, and that was a technical challenge for them in this setting. So, I mean, there are technical things that may not, we may have to go to a different room or a setting to be able to fully vet through some of these items. Anybody can participate, but you just need to be able for staff to be able to fully respond to things, and if they can't do that here, then we'll find a place we can do, a venue we can do.
The point is, you close the public hearing and cease the taking of testimony. Bringing in new items to be considered is new evidence. Yeah, we shouldn't close it out and do that. We shouldn't vote on it.
I voted no. I mean, that's all I could do. I voted not to close it, but it got closed anyway, so I didn't have it.
Okay.
I did vote no.
I understand, but even when you didn't, the commission did, and I think we have to be very careful, or we're going to get in a position that we're taking on new evidence when we don't have the authority to do that, when we close it.
Well, if there's more evidence, then in my opinion, we should get that out on the table.
We
shouldn't
should get
hide
that the
things.
first time though, Paul,
Well, we
not
actually
close
bumped
it
up
and then
against
come
our.
back a month later and go, I think we ought to add some more.
This is not gonna go away. It's not like we can say, okay, let's stop this. This has got life and it's gonna have to be dealt with somewhere. You can't say, let's just go back and let's just redo it. It's not that simple. I mean.
No, it's a big issue. We all have friends, family,
But what
neighbors
was the
that work
biggest
for both
issue
of
of that?
Trace, and
The
it's a big
biggest issue
little
of that
pillar of our
was-
community. So we need to be responsive to both sides, as I mentioned earlier. I don't think it's fair
I
to
don't have
either
that issue. I need to be
side.
responsive only to the commission, and that's what I'm trying to do.
We have a duty to the comprehensive plan of the citizens of Frankfort and Franklin County.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. That's what I believe
Yes,
our
sir.
duty
I'm
is.
glad you acknowledged that and signed up for it. That's right.
Yeah, so I
agree.
mean, I didn't feel like we had fully satisfied that,
Okay.
in my opinion. I'm one of 11, and obviously last time I got voted down and
And
closed.
you're
the
talking
public
about
hearings.
opinions, I'm just talking about the legal format that we use, that's all.
But that probably should have been, couldn't that better come up in a discussion? Like we had the vote, we brought off the table, had a vote, and then you had a discussion and get people to say, well, no, I think you could have got the same vote outcome if they'd been brought up
Well, I
in
mean, we're
discussion.
still in public hearing, and I just wanted clarification, and I think that secretaries indicated that my interpretation was what the motion was.
So I was instructed or advised by council that we couldn't bring any more testimony in, that it was done.
That's correct.
Yeah, so there was no opportunity to have discussion, to bring things, we could discuss amongst ourselves, but I couldn't bring anything else in. It's
Well,
over.
right,
That's
There was
right.
advice on
Right.
that. So
Right.
The hearing's
the
closed.
pathway that I saw
That's
for
exactly,
that
but
was to go to
in
zoning
our
update.
vote, a discussion, you could have voiced some of your concern in the discussion on the vote without making testimony out there.
I mean, this whole thing's gonna come back around all together again.
Well, I'm certainly gonna have to.
No, I'm just saying, even if you wait till the end of the comprehensive plan to be developed, you still have the same, if they don't, they can still bring it back up to where we're at right now. So we're not achieving anything by kicking it down the road.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I
There can
think
be items,
that,
there can be items of discussion at our testimony, what I'm trying
Well,
to.
Mr. Chairman,
We adjourn.
I was about to make a motion to adjourn,
I'll second.
because we keep kicking this can.
Oh, yeah, that's non-debatable, good.
Okay. All right.
It's gone.
The Terry thing was one of the weirdest things we're seeing. A year ago, we voted for it, the school voted against it, then we voted against it, voted for it.